hear ye, Malbec in France is not dead. So sure, 75% of all the Malbec vines in the world exist in Argentina. And sure, in the last 7 years or so, Argentina has doubled down and increased that planting by another 20%. And sure, almost all of the Malbecs we're talking about currently come out of Argentina, more specifically Mendoza. And you might even say that France had her chance with Malbec and she rejected that poor thing.
She did? Twice.
Twice. Once at the turn of the century after phylloxera wreaked havoc and everyone had to replant. And the second time in 1956 in Bordeaux when frost wiped out 75% of all the Malbec vines that were there. And the Bordelais said,
"You ain't all that in a bag of potato chips."
Kicked Malbec to the curb and planted other stuff. But to the credit of vignerons from Cahors and the Loire, Malbec is being replanted. And wines that were once famously declared to be the black wines of Cahors are being appreciated once again. Ironically, they're being appreciated for being so different to the Argentinian polished pop rock style of wine that made Malbec famous in the first place. And the appreciation is such that in 2017, Cahors was declared to be Wine Enthusiast Wine Region of the Year, whatever that is. So there definitely is some sort of renewed excitement going on. Now, it is true to say that in Cahors, Malbec is often blended with softer, juicy Merlot and big, structured Tannat. But if you want to taste what pure Malbec from Cahors tastes like, then be sure to try and track down bottles like Chateau Nozier's L'Elegance Cahors Malbec 2020 or Chateau La Grisette Cru d'Exception Malbec 2016 or even Chateau du Cèdre Le Cèdre 2020. Now we're discussing Malbec because today's hand drink solo wine of the day is the VERGENOEGD'S Valentina Malbec made by the award-winning young winemaker VITICULTURE using all estate fruit from VERGENOEGD'S at the very southern end of the Stellenbosch district. Now, if this sort of information intrigues you or you just want to stay up to date with South African winemaking trends, then be sure to subscribe to the Hand Drink Solo YouTube channel where we have more than 300 of these sorts of videos. And giving us a thumbs up never hurts anyone, but it will help more to discover the work that we're doing here. Fascinatingly, the vineyards on the southern end of VERGENOEGD'S estate sit 4 kilometers or less from the ocean, which makes them one of only 2 or 3 estates that have such immediate and direct influence from that ocean. So when we have time on another day, we can discuss the emerging class of coastal Syrahs that are becoming really quite exciting in South Africa. Because historically, they've only really been talking about coastal Syrah when they come from Elim or Agulhas or Walker Bay. And yet, VERGENOEGD'S are beginning to make me wonder whether we shouldn't be adding Stellenbosch to a list of genuinely coastal Syrah regions. VERGENOEGD'S have for a fairly long time been known as that estate with the ducks. And I guess that's fair enough because they really do have a lot of ducks. And arguably for a long time, the ducks were kind of the most exciting thing going on. But there has been a delicious revival and changing of the guard at the estate, which has not only involved some really diligent soil study and also widespread replantings, but also the signing on of the energetic new and now award-winning young winemaker VITICULTURE. And of course there will be skeptics who will say, well, you can't just rip up all your vineyards and replant your vineyards and change your winemaker and expect things to change. But actually, you can. Nevertheless, to the skeptic, what I'd like to say is that it might interest you to know that the lead consultant on this entire transformation was none other than Kanonkop's world-famous winemaker, Aubrey Beerslaw, who has unrivaled levels of respect, both locally and internationally. And incidentally, he somehow manages to simultaneously be an absolute goat, but also supremely humble and never passes up a chance to learn something or ask a question. One of the questions that was asked at VERGENOEGD'S is, should we just make our vineyards in square blocks like everyone else does, or should we perhaps look at the soil studies and let the vineyard blocks track along the same lines as those seams and patches of soil as they shift and change? And so that's what they did. So when you look at the estate, there's some really odd-shaped blocks, which may sound like a lot of admin to harvest, but the theory goes that vines planted on very similar soil types will then ripen a lot more uniformly, which means actually, conversely, when it comes to harvest time, there's going to be a lot less work to do. It's going to be a far simpler process to still get really high grapes of an even ripen level, but without having to do multiple picks. And there's one more exciting discovery, and that is of a true blue or white seam of genuine limestone soil in the middle of Stellenbosch, which runs directly through VERGENOEGD'S estate. Now, for those of you not familiar with the significance of limestone soils in viticulture, well, it's huge. In Burgundy, they make a big deal about Chardonnay and their limestone soils. In Champagne, they make a big deal about Chardonnay and their chalky limestone soils. In Robertson Valley, they make a big deal about Chardonnay and their limestone soils. And now, VERGENOEGD, as far as I know, are the only estate in all of Stellenbosch that can make a big deal about the fact that they have Chardonnay planted in limestone soil. So when we finally get into the glass and give this guy a sniff, we get what might be surprising to some, which is a fairly classic Bordeaux red style wine. A lot of people steer clear of Malbec because they think it's going to be overly chocolatey or jammy or sickly sweet. But this is not that. What you get instead is some really fresh elements of red cherry, black plum, violets, even a touch of lavender. So all those fairly pretty notes are then offset by slightly moodier notes of licorice and even a savory touch of bay leaf. Now, when we get to take a sip, well, the palate is again richly fruited, but again in a fairly classic style. Certainly there is no jam in sight, because we have said it at times before how Malbec can lean towards perhaps a strawberry jam or a plum preserve, but really this is not that. It's classic, quite tight black fruit, but then there are brighter sort of fresh cherry elements that provide a lovely juicy element to it. Then as far as the tannins are concerned, well, they're really quite firm, but tidy as well. They're in no way raw or brash and really just serve as the perfect framework within which to sit some of that really lovely, quite dynamic fruit. So, if you are a red wine lover who considers themselves a fan of the classics and you think Malbec is a little too weird and a little too new world, then try this VERGENOEGD bottling, the Valentina Malbec, because I think it'll surprise you at actually how elegant and restrained it gets to be, while also being not at all short of those fruit elements that I spoke about. So to finish off, I can tell you that we definitely will discuss VERGENOEGD in the future, if not at least to spend a little more time on their coastal Syrahs from Stellenbosch. But what I've done is left 2 video links, 2 more videos about South African Malbec, and each one will explore a different bottle that is being produced by some of our more innovative and progressive South African winemakers.